G.I. Joe is hands down one of my favorite cartoons from my childhood. Stay tuned for the video. While we are highlighting G.I. Joe as a toy of the 80s, it has to be mentioned that this toy line actually started in the 1960s. The original idea for G.I. Joe was developed in 1963 by a licensing agent by the name of Stan Weston. Stan created rudimentary prototypes of the Joes along with some marketing materials, and he showed them to a Hasbro executive by the name of Donald Levine. Stan went on to license the entire concept to Hasbro for about $100,000, which is a significant amount of money, especially because this was in the 1960s. At the time, the Joes were actually 12-inch figures that represented the four branches of the United States Armed Forces. And they had some pretty generic names like Rocky and Skip and Ace. But recognizing that marketing these figures as dolls probably would not result in success, the folks at Hasbro coined the term action figures. Over time, the action figure became a generic term that has been used to describe any posable toy intended for boys. This first generation of action figures became known as G.I. Joe, America's Movable Fighting Man, was sold from 1964 until 1969. In the wake of the Vietnam War, Hasbro wanted to move the focus of the G.I. Joes away from war to adventure. This shift also brought with it new enhancements to the action figures themselves. During this time, Hasbro introduced things like facial hair to give the action figures lifelike features. The Kung Fu grip and a movable eye mechanism were just some of the modifications that were actually introduced and rolled out to G.I. Joe. All of these enhancements were in place until 1976, when the 12-inch toy line was actually discontinued. In 1982, Hasbro came back with a vengeance, and they relaunched an entirely new generation of G.I. Joes at a 3.75-inch scale posable action figure. Now, these smaller figures were actually modeled after those that were introduced by Kenner for Star Wars, but these figures that were introduced by Hasbro actually had more points of articulation and were complemented by a robust marketing effort. Much like the other toys that we've discussed in this series, like the Turtles and the Transformers and the Thundercats, the Joes not only had a TV show, but an ongoing comic book that served to amplify the toy line's success. In addition to the aforementioned changes, the smaller scale figures also allowed Hasbro to create and sell playsets and vehicles, something that would have been nearly impossible with the larger 12-inch originals. This new line of G.I. Joes, dubbed G.I. Joe, a real American hero, ran from 1982 until 1994. To coincide with this relaunch, Hasbro partnered with Marvel, who created a comic book series and some 30-second animated TV commercials. These commercials were actually designed to promote not just the toys, but the comics themselves. And in fact, the popularity of the commercials led to a 5-part TV miniseries, which ultimately led to a syndicated TV show that ran from 1983 until 1986. And it has to be mentioned that G.I. Joe was the very first comic book to ever be advertised on TV. For its part, the comic book series ran for 155 issues from 1982 until 1984. In this portion of the video, I want to spend some time showing you some cool books that I have pulled from my collection. And I'm specifically talking about Volume 1 of G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. I have a nice stack of books that are sitting right here, and I have a cheat sheet that is sitting right here because there's a lot of books and there's a lot of details that go along with those books. So this cheat sheet is going to come in handy. We are going to start things off right at the top with issue number 1 of G.I. Joe Volume 1. This book is the first appearance of so many awesome characters. It is actually an oversized issue in many respects based upon the page count, but you needed the extra pages to introduce all of these characters. We're talking about Cobra Commander, Scarlet, Baroness, Snake Eyes, etc., all introduced right here in issue number 1. Fantastic cover as well. At some point, one of the copies that I have in the collection will be going off to CGC. Just have to figure out the right time to do it. But with them spending so much time writing that massive book that we just showed, they had a little bit of a lull here for issue number 2. I think there was only one first appearance in issue number 2, but it's a cool book. It's a cool book because there's a snowstorm on the cover and there's a guy blowing a bubble right back here in the middle of that snowstorm. That's what makes issue number 2 really cool. But again, it's a cool book. Definitely a little bit of a lull after issue number 1. Next up, issue number 6. Really cool cover right here. This is the first appearance of the October Guard, and also just a fantastic cover right here. Absolutely love this one. Issue number 6. A Real American Hero. Next up, we have issue number 13. This is the second cameo appearance of Destro, and you also have an awesome cover featuring a guy in the back of a taxi cab with a machine gun. Not sure that it gets any better than that. And I want to say Destro also had a cameo in issue 12, and then this is issue number 13, and then we get his full first appearance in issue number 14. He's also on the cover as well, so you cannot beat that. Definitely a cool cover right there. Issue number 14, first Destro. Next up, we have issue number 21, which is a book that I have in the collection. I know that I have it. I was, however, unable to locate it for the purpose of this video, but I know that I have it. That book is the first appearance of Storm Shadow, and it's also the silent issue. Really cool book. I wish I could have found it in time for the video, but we are going to skip to issue number 25. This issue has a handful of first appearances, including the first appearance of Deep Six, Mutt, and also Junkyard. And I remember those guys from the cartoon for certain, so issue number 25, cool book right there. Next up, we have issue number 26. This is the origin of Snake Eyes right here. And I think it also says it, the strangest secret of all. There you go, right there. That being the origin of Snake Eyes. Next up, issue number 27. This is also a continuation of the origin story of Snake Eyes. And I think it's also the first appearance of Timber, his pet. So issue number 27 right there. All right. Next up, we're going to jump big time down to issue number 93. And this is actually the where Snake Eyes' identity is actually revealed. So he had his origin before. Now we actually know his identity in issue number 93. And I will tell you that I have a healthy portion of this overall run, but there's a lot of books that are just really good books and not necessarily major keys that have to be shown in the purpose of the video. So we had to eliminate some things. So we're going to take another big jump, and we're actually going to jump down to issue number 149. And I actually have a couple of copies of that, so we're going to set that off to the side. This is actually just a cool cover done by a fantastic artist, and I think it's Phil Gossler. I think that's how you say his name, Gosser? Gosser. Issue number 149. Cool cover right there. That's a cool cover. And like I said, I think I have 4 total copies of this particular book. And then the next several books that I'm actually going to be showing you, I want to say are all scarce issues. So this is issue number 150 by the exact same artist that I just showed you a second ago. This is a scarce issue. I don't know exactly how many had been produced. I don't have the sales data, but this was identified as a scarce issue. Same with issue number 151. I don't know if there's anything crazy significant about these books other than the fact that they are deemed to be scarce. Next up, we have issue number 152. Just a couple of really cool covers right here. And let me see if they're all, yeah, these are all like the same artist. This is the 30th salute to G.I. Joe, 1964 to 1994 right there. Here is issue number 153 featuring Scarlet. Again, this is another one of those scarce issues. And then here is issue 154. Cool cover right there. Artwork changed dramatically in these last several issues. And then the very last issue in the entire run is issue number 155. And again, another really cool cover. And I want to say that I have maybe 2 copies of this in the collection. But again, just a really, really cool book. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, I will tell you for a fact that G.I. Joe was my favorite cartoon as a kid. It was also one of my favorite toys to play with. So this is a video that I've actually been looking forward to doing. And I'm glad that I was able to make it to the storage and find these books and be able to show you guys most of the books, even though, again, I misplaced 1 or 2 of them. But nevertheless, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you did, I want to encourage you to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, hit the thumbs up button, leave a comment behind so we can mix it up in the comment section. If you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. And if you want to send me an email, you can do that as well at reggie@regiecollects.com. Take care.
Uh, uh, uh.